Okay.
And 33% grade 9 to 12.
That's great information. Thank you, Suresh.
Okay, so welcome everyone to those of you who have joined us. Thanks for being here. We are doing our back to school webinar series, and today we'll be covering Glencoe Science. This session is an hour long, and I'll just quickly go over a few housekeeping slides. My name is Sarah Shuja, and I'm the marketing manager at McGraw Hill. I'm going to be here in the background to help and support you. If you have any questions or if you face any technical difficulties, you can raise your hand and let me know, or you can obviously use the Q&A box or the chat box, and we'll be here to support you in the background. I have with me today Jason Marshall. Jason Marshall is a senior national consultant. Thank you, Jason, for being here.
Always good to be with you.
Thanks. And I also want to remind you about a few housekeeping. So starting off with a couple of people in their back to school webinars have mentioned that the screen is going blank and they're not able to see the presenter's screen. I just want you to take a step back, log out from the Zoom session and log back in. It never gets old. It's usually working. Just make sure you're not using any high bandwidth apps like Netflix, YouTube, any gaming platform. But if you are seeing a blank screen, just log off from Zoom and try to log back in again. I'm sure that will help. I just want to let you know that the session is also being recorded. So you will get the recording of the session in your email, along with a certificate of participation that you will also receive on email. And we want to keep this as interactive as possible. So you have the chat box, you have the Q&A box, make use of these things. You can ask any questions in the chat box. We're happy to pick them up towards the end of the session. Or if you want to interact, have any comments, please use the chat box. But I hope you enjoyed the session and thank you so much for joining us. I'll stop sharing my screen. And that's it from me now. But over to you, Jason. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Suresh. Thank you, everybody, for joining. My name is Jason Marshall, and this back to school session will be on Glencoe Science, both middle school and high school. Thank you, Suresh, for the poll. I'll concentrate much on middle school, but I'll also concentrate on high school as well. The platform is the same, 6 through 12. So many of the features I share with middle school are shared with high school as well. It's a same platform, same ways to find resources, same ways to assign resources. And I'm so glad you did the poll, and we found out that so many of you are new users. So I'm going to start off with sort of a program overview PowerPoint. It'll last about 10 minutes, 15 minutes at the max, just to give you an idea of how the program flows and how it's organized and how a lesson looks on the student pages. Then we'll go online, and I'll share with you how to find your resources, how to assign those resources, how to create a test. And we'll even take a peek on the student side to get an idea of what they see and how do they submit resources back. So we're going to cover a lot of ground here in an hour. And if we need to follow up later, we can always do that. But let's begin. We're going to take a look at our middle school iScience series, which is available both in an integrated format. By integrated, I mean Earth, Life, Physical at each grade level, or separated. The platform, the way the program is organized is the same. It's just the way the content is organized. Some districts prefer an integrated approach, and some prefer an Earth, Life, and Physical approach. This presentation will support both. And then we're going to talk about our high school program as well, which shares so many similar features, both in print and online. Most of our students these days are accessing content digitally, so this platform is supported digitally. Students get a student edition, teachers get a teacher's edition, but there's an online experience that we're going to take a look at today that supports both teachers and students. So let's begin with this little overview. Glencoe Science at the middle school level has a feature called a Page Keeley probe. Every module has it. It's an opportunity to uncover student misconceptions going into the module. Like this scenario, every probe creates a scenario, presents a scenario that students must consider, and they have to decide who they agree with most and why. In this particular one called ball toss, Jose tosses a ball into the air. The ball eventually comes down and his friends catch it. Jose and his friends have different ideas about why the ball comes down. This is what they said. Jose thinks the ball comes down because the earth is pulling it down. Eddie thinks it's coming down because it runs out of force. Lucy thinks it comes down because pressure pushes it down. And Dinah thinks it comes down because no forces are acting on it at all. Who do you agree with most? It says at the bottom. Explain your answer. Now, the answers are going to be all over the place in the typical middle school classroom. And it's not the answer that's necessarily the most important part. It's always the last part. Explain your thinking. Get students into pairs or into groups to create a dialogue about what's going on and why. Have them share out their answers. Consider the ideas of their classmates. Now they're doing some engaging in argumentation from evidence. And now it's creating a desire to know, because most students want to know what the correct answer is. Every module begins with this kind of an experience. And as they're having this discussion with you, you're getting an idea of what their prior knowledge is and what misconceptions they have about the science involved. Paige Keeley has a lot of uses: uncover misconceptions, get students engaging in argumentations, and creating a desire to know going into the module. Every module will begin with this experience. And supporting these are strategies. So you might post the probe on the board. Give every student a sticky note. Have them share their initial ideas. Here we see in blue the sticky notes are students' initial ideas. A lot of students thought A was the best answer on this particular probe, which has A through G as answer choices. A week into the lesson, they've had a few experiences. Their thinking is likely to change. And in this case, they have. In purple, you see a week into the lesson. Students' answers have changed quite a bit. And then 2 weeks into the lesson, look, students are starting to come around to D as the best possible answer. Not all of them. We still have some at B and G. But this mirrors how students' thinking changes over time, and how scientists approach new information. Even scientists change their thinking as they get additional evidence. This is just one of many strategies you can use with these probes. So let's walk through middle school. And as I walk through middle school, I'm going to share some high school features as well, because in many ways, the lesson follows the same structure. Every 2-page chapter opener will begin with an engage with the page feature. What's going on here on the page? What the heck is this? And what is its function? That's what you'll see down here. There is a big idea or overarching theme for the module, or the chapter rather. There is a get ready to learn. It's an anticipatory set. What do they know from prior classes going into this module about this content? It's an idea for students to share their thinking about what they know about this content. When we get into the lesson, we're going to see vocabulary highlighted in yellow. This is a new vocabulary in this lesson, and the essential questions, the questions students must be able to answer at the end of each and every lesson. Now, along the way, you're going to see vocabulary treated very seriously. A lot of programs just have new vocabulary. You see it listed. But throughout the Glencoe science lessons, you're going to see vocabulary recycled from previous chapters. We call that review vocabulary. Word origin. We want students to be able to kind of decode the meaning of words without our assistance. How about academic vocabulary? We learned from Marzano maybe 20 years ago the importance of academic vocabulary, probably more important in our science classrooms than any other classroom on campus. And how about science use versus common use? Imagine a student coming out of social studies and associating the word polar with cold, or even bears. Polar means something completely different in a physical science lesson. The word film means one thing in Hollywood, something entirely different in a life science lesson. As a science teacher, when we use the word store, we may think of one meaning for that word. Our students may be thinking of a place to buy something. Think how many words fall into this category of science use versus common use. Well, we share those differences in our lesson as well. And supporting vocabulary online are little drag and drop opportunities and interactives where students can manipulate things on the screen. On the left-hand side, you see the structure, cell wall, centriole, chloroplast. Students have to match that with the visual image, the function, and word is present in plant or animal cells. And these interactives come in all shapes and sizes. Sometimes it's a drag and drop. Sometimes it's a crossword puzzle. Sometimes they're working against the clock, and other times they're working against other students. These are all experiences embedded within the program. Foldables is another feature you have available in our lessons. And this is true 6 through 12. Every module has one in high school. And you'll see them in every lesson, in most every lesson in 6 through 8. What are foldables? Well, foldables are three-dimensional graphic organizers. These are things students can use to organize their information and their notes. Think of it as a note-taking device that students create, and they get very artistic with these. And so these are embedded within the program for students to take more effective notes in a kinesthetic, very visual way. Because our students are visual learners. 65% of us are visual learners. We're the ones that dream in color. We circle, highlight, underline words. And we always gravitated to those resources that are the most visual. At least I did, I know. So the program is very visual and offers students and you a lot of visual opportunities. I'm in the ebook now. This is just a PowerPoint slide of it. And on the bottom of the student ebook, there's these little icons down here. See those? Those will take students to media resources found online. And they come in all shapes and sizes. On the top, you see what we call concepts in motion. These are audio video tutorials. Our students need to hear and see science more often than we have time to talk about it. Our topics in science can be very abstract, and sometimes it's not the second or the third time that students have that eureka moment. Sometimes it's the fourth time, and they have to hear it from a different voice, and then all of a sudden it makes sense. These are opportunities for students to do that. On the bottom left is Brain Pop, and on the right is a personal tutor. This is a Khan Academy-like experience where students just see the pen moving. Mr. Douglas and Mr. Douglas's colleagues will walk students through science concepts in this format. We designed these to hopefully be the next best thing to you when you're not around. Now, on the bottom left, you see Brain Pop. That's typically a subscription-based program, but they come free in Glencoe Science. Let's take a quick look at this one if you haven't seen them before.
Dear Tim and Moby, where's the state of matter? My friend says it's near Arizona. From Christina. Actually, Christina, the state of matter isn't a place at all. It's a physical property, a characteristic that you can observe without changing the makeup of a material. Things like hardness, color, and shape are physical properties.
The human name in that animation is Tim. The robot's name is Moby. Kids love Moby. I don't know why. He's hilarious. He doesn't even say anything except make noises, but students love these Brain Pops. Those are experiences found in the program. What kind of hands-on experiences are found in the student lessons? Well, let's take a look in middle school and high school. Every lesson begins with a launch lab. Here we are in a 2-page lesson opener, and on the right-hand side, we see a launch lab. I used to call this ABC, activity before content, having students doing something very early in the lesson cycle before they ever get into the reading at all. It makes everything that follows a little bit stickier, I used to say, in my classroom. It makes it a little bit more understandable because students have had this experience first. These will just take 10, 15 minutes long, and they start the learning with an activity. As we get into the lessons in middle school, you're going to see 2 mini labs in the lessons. You're going to see other shorter experiences. So many teachers have gave us the feedback, don't always give us these full period labs, because sometimes we're scrambling to set up, scrambling to tear down, set up, tear down, the bell rings, students are leaving, and we don't have time to do the important stuff, like analyzing the data. How about comparing data between tables? Let's do an extension, but we run out of time. So mini labs and those launch labs give you an opportunity, because they're shorter, to have those experiences. Math skills opportunities are found in the middle school lessons. You're going to see skills labs. Science isn't all about content. There's a lot of skills we want to reinforce. And so those skills practice labs are found in here. And then the full period labs as well. Every module, every lesson will end with one. Every module will end with one. Those labs that are too dangerous, too time consuming, too expensive to do in class, we do virtually. So how is momentum conserved in a vehicle collision? Students are going to test this. We wouldn't have students out in the parking lot in cars crashing them to test this, but we can do that virtually. Students choose different vehicles. They're going to choose whether it's going to be a head-on collision or a rear-end collision. What code in which the collision is going to take place. And then they test make some predictions about what's going to happen at the end of this collision. And then they get some data back as to what happens at the end. These experiences are found with our Inspire Science program 6 through 12. So in high school, you have a similar set of resources. Instead of every lesson having a launch lab, in high school, every chapter has a launch lab. But it's the same idea, activity before content. In high school, you have 2 mini labs in each and every chapter. Again, these are shorter experiences. You have opportunities like data analysis labs in high school, and those full period labs as well as small scale labs, probeware labs, and then design your own labs. Here, students have a procedure per se, or not a procedure per se, they have a plan. We give them enough structure So they know what to do, but exactly how they execute the lab from beginning to end is up to them. It's a little bit more open-ended. And then you have some ancillary labs as well. Things like guided inquiry, open inquiry, pre-AP program forensics. These are all supplemental labs found online, printable, okay, found online. And again, a suite of virtual labs is for high school as well. So it's a very hands-on approach. Lastly, WebQuest. Taking students to a computer lab or having them pull out their device to do a web quest takes time. You have to create a lesson plan. You have to have web links that are vetted and updated, and then a rubric so students know how they're going to be scored. 6 through 12 web quest experiences are available in Glencoe Science, as well as sections as well. A frog, I believe an earthworm are available to our high school and middle school students, all supported. All of what we've seen so far is supported with a teacher's edition, organized by the 5E lesson model, with opportunities to differentiate instruction all along the way. This is part of the middle school wraparound section, and you'll see approaching level, on level, beyond level for students of different ability levels, okay? I'll continue with this overview. In middle school and in high school for biology and physical science in high school, there's something called the Reading Essentials. So what is the Reading Essentials? Well, on the right-hand side, I see the student edition for middle school. On the left-hand side, I see the Reading Essentials. Same headings and subheadings. The difference between the Reading Essentials and the student edition is that the Reading Essentials is written 2 to 3 grade levels below the student edition on the right. So the Reading Essentials is a lower level read. And notice it has opportunities for response and interaction along the way. That's a tool you have for middle school students, a lower level read that they can interact with. It's essentially a write-in version of the student edition at a lower level. Biology teachers in high school, physical science teachers in high school, you have the Reading Essentials as well. Another tool you have at middle school and at high school, and at high school, it's at every discipline, biology, chemistry, physics, earth science, physical science, is called the Science Notebook. It's the Cornell system for notes. Main idea on the left, keep it very clean, just the main ideas. Indent and put the supporting details. So for every day of instruction, your students can take very effective, very organized notes. Science and Engineering Practices Handbook is a best practices tool found in the program. And project-based learning opportunities are found as well, like this one, microbeads mega problem. Can we do something about those microbeads? Our body wash and exfoliates have these microscopic plastic beads. They go down the drain as we wash. They get into our waterways. They look a lot like fish eggs to other fish, are ingested by them and are toxic to them. Well, students are going to come up with a creative solution to this problem. Some countries and states have already decided to ban them, but others have not. What can we do about it? Students are going to use the engineering design loop to come up with a creative solution to this problem. And lastly, our test generator. It's called e-assessment. Create a test in seconds. You can create a test by standards or topic. We'll cover it a little bit today. You could pull up questions by DOK or Bloom's taxonomy difficulty levels. You can add your own questions. Use questions from our bank, make it perfect, and then print it out and make copies if you want to. But you could also have that same test sent to students digitally. The benefit of them taking it digitally on their device is that it gets scored for you automatically. You don't have to grade any tests. That's a big difference and a big help. And then you could generate reports to see how students are doing. So there's a big benefit for having students take that test digitally. And there are a variety of questions on this test, more than you see in a lot of different test generators. So students can order things. That's not available in a lot of test generators. They can do multiple response where there's more than one answer that is correct. There are traditional questions like multiple choice, true, false, but you'll also see technology enhanced questions like this one, where students can manipulate things on the screen, like an image label. These are all part of our test generator bank, okay? So I'm gonna switch to online and show you where all this cool stuff is found. I'm going to close out my PowerPoint. I'll save it. I think I must have made a change. And now let's enter our platform. So I've entered the platform and I'll see a screen that looks like this. So I'll back up just a little bit. So first I'm going to enter my username and password. I'm going to log in. And when I do, I'm going to see the screen that we just saw. We like to call this the book bag screen at McGraw Hill. It will have for me as a teacher, my teacher's edition and my student edition here. And here I have high school biology, teacher's edition and student edition, and I have middle school, teacher's edition and student edition. I'm going to go into my teacher's account. Okay, I'm going to look around middle school. Now, if you're a biology or chemistry teacher, your online experience looks exactly the same as what I'm showing here. So everything that I'm about to show in this middle school class applies to you as well. You just have different resources available to you at high school. So here I am in my home screen. Okay. Now in the upper left is the menu button. We call this the hamburger menu at McGraw Hill. And if I open it up, it takes me to all the locations I might want to go to as a teacher. Okay. So this is a very important button, this menu button in the upper left. This is maybe the most important button in the entire platform because it takes me to where I want to go. Okay. If I click on it again, it will close out. But let's take a look at this home screen first. Okay. So I have an ebook here. And it will open up my student ebook. So this is basically the digital version of the student book. And just to kind of help you navigate it a little bit, let's take a look around a little bit. So in the upper left is another hamburger menu, and it takes me to different locations in the book that I might want to go to. So maybe I want to go to chapter 2, cell structure and function. And maybe within it, I want to go into lesson 2. So I click on that and it takes me directly to lesson 2. And then again, this is an experience that students have as well. But on their experience, they have speaker buttons here as well. So they can have the page read to them. Okay? But we're on the teacher side and we don't have those speaker buttons. But I'll show you what it looks like on the student side. So I have a 2-page view here. I'm going to make it a 1-page view by clicking on this icon down at the bottom. Now we're in a 1-page view. And if I want to make it larger, I just click on this little icon right here. Now I can make it as large as I like by expanding this right here. Okay. As a student, there'll be a speaker button here that could read this chapter to me or this section to me. I could also choose as a student to highlight this section. So maybe I want to highlight this section yellow. Okay, now I have a highlighted book. So I can do that as a student. Maybe I want to make a little note to myself here and say, ask Mr. Marshall if this will be on the test. So the students can highlight and annotate this digital book, and they can come back and take a look at it later and realize that they've made some annotations and take a look at those. I can even make a little place mark here. So let me go to the next page here and let me click on this little icon up here at the top and make this a place mark. I'm going to add this as a place mark. Think of it as kind of a bookmark. Now it's turning blue. So where do all these get stored for me as a student? Well, if I go up here to my hamburger menu up in the upper left-hand corner again, I can go here to all of my bookmarks and it'll keep track of all of my bookmarks here in one location. Okay. Let me exit out of here. Okay, I'm going to click on the hamburger menu. I can create notes. I can write on my book. I can highlight. I can annotate. And if I'm a student in here, I can click on it and have the page read to me as well. So this, we're going to leave the ebook. The ebook is found on the home screen for both teachers and students. Now, I'm going to go to this hamburger menu. We're going to explore these locations, starting with the top. Where does ConnectEd take me? Well, ConnectEd will take me one step back into my book bag screen. Okay, so that's where it takes me. Let's go back into the class. We don't want to be here. We want to be in the class. So I know where ConnectEd takes me. Class management will take me to my students. Okay, now I have a class here called Jason's Middle School Fall Class. And if I need to create a new class, I can here. We're not going to talk about class creation much here. Hopefully your classes have been created for you or that's already been done. But here's my class. And if I need to remove students, I can do that right here. This is a classroom management section. Now, the location that I would probably want to go to most as a teacher that's new to the program is my resources. Where are my resources? You showed so many cool little resources, both in print and digital, Jason. Where do those exist? How do I find them? Well, there's two ways of finding your resources when you're a user of Glencoe Science. First location is resources here. The second location is plan and present. Let's take a look at resources first, okay? How does this present my resources for me? Well, you're going to see a screen that looks like this. And this is kind of like a database of all of your resources. Now, how do I get to them? Well, the first thing you need to do is choose a chapter of resources you want support for. So let's say we're in chapter 2, cell structure and function. I'm going to choose that chapter. And now it will zero in on those resources specific to that chapter. Now, the second pull down menu, I have some choices here. Do I want to go to the chapter overview section? These will be resources that support the entire chapter. Or do I want to go specifically to a lesson? Okay. Now, after all the lessons, there's a study guide that supports the entire chapter. As you're approaching the chapter test, there are some study guide opportunities there for students. There's chapter review, there's standardized test practice, and there's additional chapter resources. So I've got a lot of locations within chapter 2 that I could go to as a teacher. Let's explore them a little bit, starting with the overview, okay? This Glencoe Science program has so many resources available to you. And many of those resources are found in this first little link called Chapter Resources. And notice if I put my cursor on the title, a little blue box expands telling me what resources are found in here. So it says Chapter Resource Files. And underneath it, it says Student Labs and Activities, Lesson Labs, Content Vocabulary, all sorts of stuff in there. Well, boy, let's click on that and see what kind of stuff is there. Okay. This document is 123 pages long. So there's a lot of resources in here. And it gives you an idea here on this first page what type of resources those are. So let me make this a little bit larger. And so on the left-hand side are the title or the type of resource it is. And then over here to the right, it says, okay, do we have one in lesson 1, 2, 3, and 4? For instance, this Launch Lab is a print piece that supports the Launch Lab in the book. Every lesson has one, lesson 1, 2, 3, and 4. This Content Vocabulary piece, every lesson has one, lesson 1, 2, 3, and 4. Mini labs, 3 of the lessons have them. So these are the labs that are found in the book, but maybe you want students to complete the lab and turn something in. So for that, we want to go to the print resource. So these are hyperlinkable. So if I click on 12 here, it will take me directly to that mini lab. And I can decide if that's something I want to use, something I want to print out, and something I want to have students complete and turn into me, okay? And take a look at all these resources here on the left. Content practice, math skills, school to home. You want activities for students to do at home? You have these great little activities for students to complete at home available to you. So many resources that support math, literacy, lab work. Here are leveled labs. Lab A is for students approaching level. Lab B is for students on level, maybe beyond level. Lab C is a more rigorous lab. It's for students beyond level, okay? And down here, if you need to know what AL, OL, and BL mean, it says right here on the bottom. I have leveled chapter tests. Chapter test A is for students approaching level. It's a little bit lower level. B is for students on level. Chapter C is a little bit more challenging. So I've got all of these resources available, and all of them are hyperlinked, okay? All of those were found in this first resource called Chapter Resources. Classroom Presentation Toolkit is actually a PowerPoint. Okay, I can open that up. And here I will see a PowerPoint that's been developed for me for each and every lesson. Okay, so those are PowerPoints for each and every lesson available to you here. Classroom Presentation Toolkit. What are these color transparencies? Well, if you've been teaching a long time like I have, you remember when we had overhead transparencies, and your classroom may still have overhead transparencies. Well, that's what these are designed for, but teachers now project these. And so these were designed, these bell ringer transparencies, and if I scroll down here, it will say bell ringer. These are designed to be used as students are coming into class. So as a teacher, it was always helpful for me to have a few minutes to kind of regroup between classes. I could take roll, get reorganized, and get ready for the next class to come. Well, the bell ringer transparency, you put it on the screen and students have a task. They know when they come into class, they have to take a sheet of paper out, consider the scenario here, decide who they agree with most or what the best answer is and why. And so this gives them a task while they're coming in, giving you a few minutes to prepare for class. In middle school iScience, every lesson has one. So here we go to lesson 2, bell ringer. If I scroll down here, lesson 3 has a bell ringer, and lesson 4 does as well. If there's a lesson 4, yep, there's a lesson 4, and lesson 4 has a bell ringer. So as you're preparing for class, students are on task. They're not getting disorganized, getting talkative. They know as soon as they come in, they have to take out a sheet of paper, put their name on it, and consider the scenario and answer those questions. Okay, that's bell ringer. And again, this is found in the chapter overview section. So that's what we're looking at now. A lot of resources here. And by the way, these resources, they're only found here. So a lot of teachers might go directly to the lesson. And notice I don't see the bell ringer transparencies here. Okay, they're not here. We haven't explored this lesson level yet, but they're not here. So remember, to find bell ringer transparencies, you have to go to the overview to find them. To find these PowerPoints, you have to be here to find them. And so another resource you have to find here in the overview is the Page-Keeley probe transparency, or Page-Keeley probe. Remember that scenario that uncovers misconceptions, gets students talking at the beginning of the module? Maybe you group them and have them share their thinking with classmates and then report back. That's found here at the module level. And on the second page are the teacher notes, saying the best answer is G and why the best answer is G. It kind of gives you an idea, or it helps you feel confident as a teacher what the best answer is and how to explain it to your students going into this scenario. And it also will tell you if students choose, let's say A or B or some other answer that's incorrect, where that confusion might be coming from, what they might be thinking and why. Why might they have that misconception? Where does it come from? Misconceptions can be tenacious things. Let's address them early. Every module has that opportunity. It's called the Page-Keeley probe. Vocabulary practice here, or quick vocabulary here. Lots of tools found just here in the overview. And then there's something called SmartBook. Hold that thought. We're going to come back to SmartBook here in a little bit. So overview section. Let's methodically go into a lesson here. I'll skip lesson 1 and I'll go into lesson 2. Here I have some brain pops here. Okay. So I have a brain pop video I can choose to assign my students. I have a web quest. Here's the one with research links and a rubric so students know how they're going to be scored. If I scroll down here, here are my chapter resources in a Word document format. So here are my chapter resources for this lesson in a PDF format. So think of that big document that was 123 pages. Now we broke it down into a lesson. So it's only 19 pages. And these are the print resources available for this specific lesson. But this is in PDF format. Maybe I'm a teacher and I want to make some edits. I have those same chapter resources, same ones over here, and now they're in Word document format. Now I can open them up, and maybe I want to make some edits to these resources. So if I scroll down here, I can make some edits to any one of these lessons that I want to. Okay, same resources, now in Word document format. Okay, so PDF version of the lesson resources, Word document versions. The resources are also available in Spanish if you think you might need that. Multilingual glossary is available here. And so if I open it up, I believe 13 different languages are supported in this multilingual glossary. Let's just take a look at what it looks like. Okay. So lots of different types of resources. And don't forget that you have a second page typically here. And if we go to page 2, here are resources like my reading essentials. Remember we talked about that in the overview? Same headings and subheadings as the student book. We're in chapter 2, lesson 2, and that would be cell structure and function. The first subheading you'd see would be the cell. But it's written 2 to 3 grade levels below the student book. And there are opportunities for students to type in the margins or write in the margins if you were to print this out. So it's a more accessible version of the book. As a teacher, I could print any of these out, download them to my desktop, or I could choose to administer this digitally. And here's the science notebook, which is the Cornell system for notes. Okay. Main idea on the left, keep it very clean. And notice this handy little "I found this on page" feature. This is very nice. So as a student, I could say, I found this on page 124. So not only am I taking organized notes, I also have the page number that I can refer back to in the student edition in case I need to get a little bit more information on this topic. So it's a really nice, organized Cornell note system device. We call it the Science Notebook. And down here is that project-based opportunity, kind of like that microbeads we saw earlier, but this one is specific to the cell. It's called Engineering a Cell. Okay, let's continue through these resources here. I've got a study guide here with interactives, self-check practice. Here I can use this, and maybe I want to assign this for students to do for an activity. Any resource that I find, and it could have been that reading essentials that we saw earlier, it could have been this video, any resource that's meant for students can be assigned to students digitally. So how do I assign it to students digitally? Well, you find the resource, like this drag and drop vocabulary activity that we just saw just a moment ago. You decide whether or not that's what you want to use. Yep, I want to send that to my students. Then you look for this little cogwheel. Every resource has it. Click on it, and one of your options will be assign this resource. The only way you won't see assign this resource is if it's a resource that's meant for teachers' eyes only, or if you don't have any students in your class. But if you have students in your class and this resource is meant for students, you'll see assign this resource as an option. Let's go ahead and assign to see how that's done. I'm going to click assign this resource. This resource is assigned. It's attached. And I'm going to call this vocabulary drag and drop practice. Okay. I'm going to say complete and be ready to talk about these terms on Monday. When do I want this to be due? I can decide when I want it to be due. Every assignment will allow you to do that. I'll have it due on Monday the 5th. Who do I want to receive this? I want all of my students to receive this. But notice as I could choose individual students if I wanted to, but I'll have all of my students receive this. And I'm ready. I'm going to click assign. And now that's been sent to my class as an assignment. Just basically a little vocabulary practice they can use as they're studying for a test. Okay. When I assign something, it will show up in my assignment tracker. Here's that vocabulary practice that we just assigned to my class. Let's go back into my resources section here. So we've seen, what have we seen so far? We've seen the overview section where I have a PowerPoint, chapter resources, bell ringer, page Gilly Pro. We've gone into a lesson where we have lesson resources. And don't forget, there's a page 2 with the reading essentials, a notebook, Cornell Notes. We've gone to the study guide, which has little interactives and vocabulary practice. If I continue down here, I've got a chapter review, which has additional self-check practice that you can assign to students as practice going into a test. They can get a hint to point them in the right direction, but this is self-check practice. And if I continue down here, there's some standardized test practice. And if I scroll down here, let's see if there's anything in additional resources. Nothing there. Okay. So I have a database of resources organized by chapter. Now notice we skipped over this unit section. What happens if I click on this unit section? Well, I've got some resources here as well that shouldn't be overlooked, like a STEM project. Okay, so my STEM project is here at the unit level. And if I go above all units and chapters, I have a section called scientific explanations. Think of this as a foundational chapter. So before I go even into chapter 1 or unit 1, maybe I want to start with scientific explanations to give students maybe some math practice, some practice on the scientific method. That's what this location is all about. It has a chapter resource section as well. And so what will all these topics be in this chapter? Well, if I scroll through here, you'll see these topics will be maybe a case study for students to get science back on their mind, language arts activities, for data analysis. These are basically all activities that support foundational science, okay? Math involved, the scientific method, the nature of science. And so that's what all this chapter is about. Okay, so I've got resources here called scientific explanations. And at the very top of my middle school class or high school class, I have some course resources. These are resources that support the entire course. So I have resources that support the unit, chapter. I could open up a chapter and get into a lesson. But up top of everything here is a section that supports the entire course. So what's found here? It looks like there's 4 pages of resources. Must be a lot of stuff. Here's some stuff here you do not want to overlook. Okay. So I have an alignment guide. If you are a teacher that's teaching NGSS standards, this is an alignment guide that will share with you where those standards are addressed in the program. If I scroll down here, here is a materials list of all the materials needed to do the labs in the program. Here is something that I think you'll like. It's called extra skills activities. These are activities that support not content necessarily, but skills like comparing and contrasting, mapping, interpreting data, observing and inferring and predicting. And so each one of these is a nice little activity. It's a 1-page activity. It makes a really nice activity for students that maybe finish early. You want students to have some skills practice going into a lab. These are great. These are great for homework. Okay? These are just additional skills activity. And sometimes I think they get lost here in this section, which is course resources. So don't forget them. They're called extra skills activities. And if I scroll through here, I have some additional lab videos and some other things that apply to the entire course. Okay. So if the resources section, we've spent a lot of time on here because it's so important. You need to know where to find your resources and how to assign them. And just as a review on how to assign them, let's do that one more time. First, I find the resource that I want to assign. Maybe it's this video. I preview it, make sure it's something that I want to assign to students. Once I've done that, I click on the cog of the wheel or this pinwheel. I click assign this resource. I give it a name, Brain Pop Assignment. I give instructions, watch, be ready to talk about it tomorrow. Then I decide who gets it and when I want it to be due. The expiration date is when it will disappear as an assignment on the student page. So due date is your expectation of when it gets turned in or completed. Expiration date is when it will totally disappear from the student side. I click on all of my students to receive this, and I click assign. And now that's been sent to my class. And I'll see it over here in my assignment tracker. Here's that Brain Pop assignment that I just sent. Okay. So resources is my database of resources, and we've explored all of these sections. So now you know how to find your resources one way. Let me show you how to find your resources a second way. I go up to menu, and down here I have Plan and Present. So Plan and Present will take you to all of those same resources. It's just organizing them differently. And you might like this way a little bit better. It's entirely up to you, but you might like this way a little bit better. So how do I choose a chapter in a lesson here? Well, I click on this, and I choose Chapter 2, and let's go into Lesson 2, because that's where we were before. So now instead of those resources kind of showing up here and big tiles, now they're in handy little file folders, organized the same way as my teacher's edition is, which is by the 5 E's. So an Engage has its own file folder. When you're engaging students, it's saying you might want to consider some of these videos, or maybe this vocabulary opportunity. And so the resources over here on the right, what's over here on the left? Well, on the left is my teacher's edition content. So let's say you left your teacher's edition at school. You still have your teacher's edition content available to you on the left. In my engagement toolbox, here's my teacher's edition content and the resources over here on the right. If I go to Explore, here's my Launch Lab opportunity. If I go to Explain, resources on the right, content on the left. A lot of teachers like this because they can see strategies on how they may implement these resources on the right, and they're all in one place. In my resources section up here, I didn't see any strategies, did I? I don't have any strategies over here. I just have the resources. But if I go to plan and present where we were just at, I have the resources and the strategies and suggestions all in one place and side by side. So for that reason, a lot of teachers like to find their resources here. Okay, so it's an option for you. Can I assign these resources here just like I could before? Yes. I could preview it first. Once I decide I want to use it, I click on the cog wheel and I click assign this resource, just like we did before. How do I go to another lesson? Well, I just pull the menu. Maybe I want to go to chapter 3, lesson 1. And here I'll have a similar set of file folders with those resources organized in there. Okay. So we know how to find resources 2 different ways. We know how to assign resources. We click on the pinwheel and click assign this resource. Okay. What if I wanted to bring resources from an outside source into my program? Okay, something McGraw Hill knows nothing about. It's an activity that I use that I want to continue to use and assign digitally. I have a location here called My Files. And in My Files, I can bring a resource from an outside source. So maybe I want to select a file for my desktop. McGraw Hill knows nothing about it. I click on it. I click upload. Now it's been brought into the McGraw Hill site. Okay. So My Files allows you to bring resources from outside sources. So we've looked at resources. This is my database. I choose by chapter and lesson. I'm not going to forget the unit resources, which has my STEM projects. I'm not going to forget the scientific explanations, which are great activities for the beginning of the year to give everybody a solid foundation. And I'm not going to forget my course ride resources at the very top, which has some cool stuff like these extra skills activities and my materials list. We've seen those resources organized differently in Plan and Present. These create digital file folders. So I like to call this my digital filing cabinet. If the other location is a database, Plan and Present is my digital filing cabinet because I have these handy little file folders. So it organizes me a little bit more. Okay. Same resources, they're all here. They're just organized into little file folders. Down here is my reading essentials. I could decide if this is something I want my students to get or use, print it out, or assign it digitally by clicking on the cog wheel. Okay. So as a teacher, many of you might say, hey, I don't need a lot of technology in my classroom. I've been successful for 20, 30 years, and we didn't have all this technology. So as long as you have the ability to project every now and then and print out resources, you're going to be incredibly successful because there's a lot of resources to print out, a ton of resources, more than you'll ever use. You can project your PowerPoint. You can do the labs that all the labs are in here. You're going to be incredibly successful. But know if you're a digitally oriented classroom, you can assign all this stuff digitally as well and have students complete it digitally. Let's take a look at another location in our hamburger menu. So we've seen the resources. This is our database. All of our assignments get stored in an assignment tracker. Okay, we've seen that. Calendar keeps track of our activities as well. Many teachers have their own calendar. I typically don't spend too much time here. My Files, resources from outside sources can be brought in. Help will take you to a help section. Okay. So here as a teacher getting started, maybe after this back to school webinar, maybe you want to go to teacher getting started here. And where do I go to? Because this supports all of our McGraw Hill programs. Well, if I'm a middle school teacher teaching Glencoe Science, I want to go down here to iScience 2017. And if I'm a high school teacher teaching science, I want to go to here to high school science. I'm going to click on iScience 2017. And here I'll have videos that will share with me and printouts on Plan and Present. That's where we just were in the program. So if you forget anything, you can always come here to Plan and Present. There's little videos here, printouts that will support you for every section of this platform. Okay, that's in our help button. Okay, and here's the Plan and Present. There's a section in that help section on this specific section. So there's always support wherever you are. Okay, so that's what help has. Home, where does home take me? Home will take me back to my home screen. Okay. Let's go to the next section. So we've seen all of these sections, gone to plan and present. The two that we haven't seen so far that are real important are assessment and SmartBook. Before I go to these, let me go to these down here. Messages and discussions. Let's say you just want to send a message to your students. Okay. And I'm going to send a message. I can create a message. I want all my students to get this. I'm going to just say test reminder. Don't forget we have a big test on Monday. Let me know if you need help. Okay, so this is just a broadcast message to my class. I click send. Now I have that reminder sent to my class. Now, what's the difference between messages? And if I scroll all the way down here and go to discussions, well, discussions is kind of like a discussion thread, like a text thread that you send to a group where multiple people can respond. So messages is directly from you to student and back to you to the teacher. Discussions can be responded by everybody in the group. So let's create one of those. I want all my students to get this. And what do I want this to be? I'll call this video commentary. What did you think of the video we saw today in class? Okay, so now you're wanting students' opinion. I click create. And now this option will come out to students and they can respond to it. Okay. So what does it look like on the student side? We've sent students a couple assignments. We've sent them a message and now we've sent them a discussion thread. What does it look like on their side when they go online? Well, let me open up a window here. And I'm going to go in as a student in my class. And I'm going to go in as Jim. I go in as Jim. And I'm going to enter his middle school class because that's what we've been working on. Now notice Jim has an experience that looks very similar to mine, doesn't he? Jim has a hamburger menu up here, but Jim doesn't have as many locations as I have because Jim is a student. Jim doesn't need all the locations I do. He doesn't need professional development. Maybe he does, but not the kind that I need as a teacher. So there's no professional development section here. Jim has just what he needs as a student. Jim has an ebook just like we do. And if I open up Jim's ebook, notice it looks just like our ebook, except remember I said there's going to be speaker buttons here. So Jim can have this ebook read to him. Same tools as we saw before. Jim goes to his hamburger menu. And if he goes to my messages, he has that message that I sent. Hey, don't forget you have a big test on Monday. Let me know if you need help. Okay. All right. I'll let Mr. Marshall know I need some help on this specific section. So this is a communication my teacher gave me. If I go down to discussions, I've got my discussions here. What do you think of the video we saw today in class? Now I'm Jim answering. I thought it was so cool the way the cell makes energy. And I'm going to click attach. And then I'm going to click post. And now that's been sent. And other students are going to post this as well. So every student will contribute their own thoughts, and it becomes kind of like an ongoing text thread here based on a question that I posed to the teacher. If I go to my hamburger menu, I have some homework waiting for me as a student. I have a brain pop assignment that you saw me create for my students. It says watch and be ready, talk about it tomorrow. So a student come in, they'll watch his brain pop assignment. Pain Pop video, and there's a video and a quiz. I'll just watch the quiz here. So I've got the tool that my teacher has sent to me. And then I have that vocabulary practice, drag and drop practice. These are basically just little practice and watch assignments that my teacher sent to me. Okay, so this is what the experience looks like on the student side. We'll come back to it here in just a moment. I know we're towards the end of my time. I've got a few more things I want to share with you that are important. And so we've seen all these locations, and we just saw messages and discussions and what those look like student side. Let's go to assessments. Okay. Assessments is your test generator. Now, we won't be able to go this into great depth, but let me just give you an introduction to it. And we could always follow up with sending you video support on how to work this greater depth, and the help section will share you as well. But let me open it up and show you how to create a test. The first thing I need to click to create a test is this little icon. It looks like here. It'll be in the upper left-hand corner when you go to assessments. I click on it. Now there's 3 sections that I want to make you aware of as a teacher, and they're right up here in the upper right-hand corner. Test generator, what you'll see first. That's where we create tests in this test generator. Once you've created the test, it will show up in my tests over here. That's my folder that keeps, that's my folder that stores my tests. So I created in test generator. Once I've created it, I want to assign it. I go to classes and assignments to assign it. This is where you want to click on to assign it to students digitally. And then once students have taken it, I can go to reports. But we're going to do this really fast, but just give you an idea of what I mean here. I'm ready. I want to create a test in test generator. I click create test right here. What do I want to call this? I'm going to call this Tuesday. My keyboard is sticking on me here. Tuesday, pop. My goodness, my keyboard is going crazy. I'll call this T-test since I can't seem to type anything right now on my keyboard. I'm sure I get test out of here. Okay, I'll call this T-test. Where do I want it stored? I'll have it stored in my tests. Okay, that'll be my folder. How do I want to create this? Do I want to create it randomly? Here, I'll just choose a chapter and how many I want. This next section, I choose by standards or difficulty level. This next way down here, I can pick and choose the questions I want to be a part of the test. Just for the sake of time, I'm just going to do it randomly real fast. I'm going to next. What chapters do I want to be a part of this test? So here I can choose the chapters. Now you're only going to see your class. I have a bunch of different classes that I use, so I see all these classes. But let me go to my middle school class. This is the only folder you'll see. And let's say I want this to come from cell structure and function. So I'm going to choose chapter 2. I click next. I want this to be in English. Next. Now, how many questions do I want and of what type? I'm going to use 10 multiple choice. Okay, I'm going to choose 10 multiple choice. Oh my goodness, my board is sticking on me. I click next. Looks like I only chose 1 here. Apologize for my keyboard. Not sure what's going on with it right now. I'm going to click finish, but we have 1 question here. And here we have that test. We've created it. So this test, if I exit out of here, will store it for me in my test. Here it is, right here. Okay. Now I want to assign it to my class. So how do I assign it? Remember, you got to go up here to the top, classes and assignments. And this section will always guide you here and always tell you what you need to do. It says drag your class to begin. So I'm going to find my class. I'm going to drag it over here to begin. I click new assignment. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call this is what students will see when they go online. I'm going to call this pop quiz. All right, I'm going to select the test that I just created. I'm going to click OK. That's then attached to this. So pop quiz is what my students will see. T-test is the test that I created for it. Do I want it to be a recorded test or a study guide? I'll make this a recorded test. And now I have choices. Who do I want to receive this? Do I want to give them multiple times to take this test? Do I want to give them a time limit, like make it disengage? Do I want to give them after a certain date? Do I want to give them a time limit? Let's say I give them 5 minutes to take this test. Do I want to scramble this test for them? It will scramble the questions, the answer choices within the question. And if you're a high school chemistry teacher, you will like this recalculate algorithm. Or physics teacher, this where students get different questions of different values. So not everybody sees the same type of question, especially for math-based assessments. It's a really cool feature. I have those options available. Do I want students to be able to check their responses? I'll say no for this particular test. And I'll click next. I have some other choices, finally finish. And now my test has been sent to my class. What do students need when they go online? Well, now we're ready for students to take this test. So I'm going to open up my window here. Let's go back as a student. And let's take a quick look here. Let's enter it as Jim. I'm going to go in as a student Jim. I'm going to click login. We were just here a moment ago. We're going to enter Jim's middle school class. And where is he going to find that test we just sent him? He's going to go to his hamburger menu. He's going to go to homework. And Jim's going to see in his due later section that pop quiz that we just sent him. He opens up that quiz and Jim has a test. It looks very simple. Just one question in this test as my keyboard was sticking on me. And so Jim chooses what he thinks the best answer is. I'll choose diffusion. He could also pull this menu. And then when he's done, he clicks finish. Okay, am I sure I'm done? I'll say yes. Okay, didn't get that one correct, but Jim will see a score here and any other information I wanted him to see based on how I created that test. And then as a teacher, when I come back in here, I can see student data. So I'm going back to my assessments, and to see student data, I go to reporting. It says drag a class to this to begin. So I'm going to drag that school class in here. And now I'm able to see things like an item analysis report, an assignment report. All of these will be available to me after my students have taken this test. Now, I know I went really fast on here, and you're going to need additional information on this. Please let us know. We send you videos on walking through this. We could do an entire webinar on assessment if you feel it would be important for you to master the assessment generator. But I just wanted to get introduction in a very short amount of time. And the last thing that I'm going to get to here, and I know we're over time, this will just take a few minutes to share, SmartBook. SmartBook is an adaptive, personalized learning tool that I could send to my students. I click on Add Assignment, and I'm going to click on New Assignment. Okay. What chapters do I want to be a part of this assignment? Well, let's go to the same content we've been working with this entire time, cell structure and function. I click Continue. Now with this, I can choose what specific content I want to be a part of this assignment. We're in lesson 2, the cell. Okay. What specifically do I want my students to have an assignment on? Well, maybe it's just cytoplasm and cytoskeleton that I want to make sure they know the difference on. So I'm just going to choose these two things right here. But notice I can add as many as I want. And it will tell me here about how long it will take students to complete this assignment. So I'm just going to choose these two. I click Continue. What do I want to call this? I'll call this my SmartBook assignment. As a teacher, I just decide when I want to assign it and when I want it to be due. Okay. Do I want all my students to get this? Yes, I do. And I click Assign. And now it has been assigned to my class. What does the SmartBook assignment look like on the student side? Let's take a look at it really fast. It is a feature that adapts to students' performance. And so every student has a different pathway, and it will keep track of what students know and what they don't know. So I'm going to go to my homework here. And if I go to my due later section, I'm going to see. Oh, here it is, SmartBook assignment. I go to my SmartBook assignment. 2 concepts. Now, as a student, I could go into my reading here, or I could go into questions. Maybe I read before and I'm ready to do my questions. I don't need to read, but maybe students need to read. So I'm just going to reading first. And here they have their SmartBook. And it will highlight content that's going to be a part of this assignment, okay? When I'm ready to go into questions, I go into questions. Make progress by completing concepts. The number of questions will vary depending upon your individual needs. So it's adapting to student performance. It's okay to get questions wrong. You're going to earn 100% if you finish this. This is not an assessment tool. We just left the assessment tool. That's a test generator. This is a study tool. And finally, let students know, be honest about their confidence. Let's just answer a couple questions. Fluid inside the cell that contains salts and other molecules. I'm going to say cytoplasm. Okay, I got that one correct. Next question. Blank is a network of thread-like proteins. I'm going to say cytoskeleton. How confident am I? I'm going to say I'm high confidence. You always have to say your confidence level. Now, what happens if I start getting some questions wrong? Okay, I'm going to say medium confidence. I got that incorrect. Let me get another question wrong here. I'm going to say ribosome, medium confidence. Notice what it does. It says you got to go back into your resource here to get additional information. So students will have to go back into their reading to get additional information about this content. And it will highlight those areas that they're struggling with. So if they're struggling with cytoskeleton, it will highlight that area blue to focus their attention on that area that they had some struggles with. So they can't go in here and go willy-nilly, just start answering questions to get through the assignment as fast as possible. They have to get the answers correct. And if they don't, it will direct them back into the reading. This is an adaptive, personalized learning tool that we call SmartBook. And it is a tool available to you right here in your hamburger menu. So this has been a short overview of the McGraw Hill program and the online experience. I'm here to answer I'm a little bit over. I'm here to answer any questions that may have come up, Suresh.
Thank you, Jason. That was very informative. I'm glad you took the time to pause and explain us and go over everything that was required. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
I have not seen any questions come across, but this is a good time to open up for questions. If anyone has any question for Jason, please let us know. Equally, we're happy to close the session if there are no questions. And of course, you can get back to us if you have any questions on our email address. That's the same email address that you had the invite for. And you will have the recording for this webinar as well to go watch out. Randa says, thank you so much. You are very welcome, Randa.
Thank you, Randa. Thank you for joining us. This was fast. It was covered a lot of ground, but always know we're here to help you. And if we want to dig deeper, just let us know. We'd be happy to dig deeper into this platform with you.
Thank you so much, Jason, for your time. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Have a wonderful back to school year. Really appreciate that. It is needed. Thank you so much. Thank you. You're very welcome. I would like to ask, how can we get an access for these resources? Shalimar, that's a great question. So you should already have access to Glencoe Science. Are you using Glencoe Science? Or is it the first time you heard about it in this webinar? No, I'm a new user. So I
have a demo account that I could share.
Oh, great.
And so this will allow you to have access to the resources that we just saw until you're able to get your own account. So
thank you, Jason.
Go to, let me update this. This is a little bit out of date here. So
I am a new user. So even if you are a new user, your school will provide you with you will be set up with your own login details for now. Jason is kind enough to share a demo login. Please don't use this demo login for your class. We have a couple of people who have done that. So I just want to remind you that you will have your own login details. But yes, feel free to look around in the demo login that Jason is sharing.
So
Or
you
like
want
no
to
science.
my.mheducation.com. And for middle school, the username is myscience1. If you're a high school teacher, the username is myscience3. And the password, doggone it, I must not have saved it here. Hold on here on the password. Let me make sure I get the correct information up here. Okay, the password, science MH 2022. Okay. So my.mheducation.com, the username for middle school and high school, and then the password for both middle school and high school is science MH 2022. Now the password is case sensitive, so make sure you capitalize the M and the H. And as Sarish said, this is just a demo account. What this will do is until you get your account, it will allow you to access the resources, but it won't allow you to assign them to your students or anything like that. It will just allow you to access the resources. And if you need to print them out, you could print them out. So it will get you going in the right direction.
Thank you so much, Jason.
Yep.
One question, is there any availability to download the teacher edition in PDF?
The teacher's edition is not downloadable as a PDF. It either exists in print as part of your purchase of Inspire or Glencoe Science, and it also exists online, but it's not downloadable.
Thanks. I hope that's clear. Okay, and I think that brings us to the end of the session now. Thank you once again for joining us. We'll see you next time. Watch out your inbox for the recording. Have a look at the demo account in case you need to check that out, but make sure you check with your administrator for your own accounts as well. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you, Cerise. Take care, everyone. Let us know how we can help.
Take care. Bye.